Tom, you've been doing this a long time like our buddy Clay, and we were talking about earlier how people were kind of overreacting to hearing that the defense dominated the second scrimmage. I know ball security has been stressed by Kendall Briles repeatedly. It seems like they didn't have that on Friday, man.
It does seem, and we didn't hear exact names that connected to the fumble so much. We are aware of the first drive by the offense. I guess Felipe Franks drove them down inside the 10. Sam Pittman guessed to the 9, and then threw a pick to Simeon Blair. But other than that, we're not sure the quarterbacks or the running backs who fumbled. But I don't know. I guess it's okay to have some balance that the offense did well in the first scrimmage and the defense did this one. So both working with a little confidence and got to hold on to the ball. I mean, you could be a great offense, but if you turn it over, you're not going to score a ton of points.
Tom, one of the things that Arkansas has, I think, kind of, I don't know necessarily working against them, but is it, I'm trying to pay, and I know you're doing this too, trying to pay attention to a bunch of people that are covering Georgia right now, what's going on with their scrimmages and stuff. Do you think Georgia and just teams across college football, do they have a disadvantage compared to years past for the first game, considering the lack of like media coverage and the lack of really we getting to see anything associated with the football in the fall?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. Does Georgia have the disadvantage?
I think I don't know if it's just Georgia, but really any team in college football, like the first game that they play, you're not getting a lot because you haven't heard and you haven't seen just because of Corona and like media not wanting to be there and just the lack of being really coverage we're being able to get.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a different year than they've ever had. Athletes are used to the camps that they have. I mean, it used to be the two-a-days, but they're used to the camps and the pacing and the structure of a camp where you're getting after it all day, every day, and then a couple of weeks before the season starts, you break camp, and you're still practicing, and your roster completely fills up, and you get ready for the first game. We're not having that this year. So you take a team like Navy. Ken Niumatalolo at least accepted responsibility for the fact, he said, we were tackling dummies and did not have tackle practices, and you saw what happened to them last night against BYU. I mean, that was a jaw-dropper, how different those two teams looked. Yeah. So I think before I got here, I think the folks told me, Bob, Nate, those guys, that in 2006, Arkansas went really light on the tackling, and in the opener or whatever game it was against USC, they had a bunch of fumbles. It may have been 05, but anyway, Felix
6.
Jones had several fumbles, and he didn't get tackled all camp. So you got to have some of that.
Yeah, and I've watched a lot of these games to this point, even at the high school level. Tom, a lot of sloppiness with pre-snap penalties, false starts, offsides, and encroachment penalties. I just wonder if Arkansas and the rest of the SEC and the leagues that are starting at the end of September will have some edge on eliminating some of those mistakes just by having more practice hours and more practice time, but also watching games of these other teams and knowing, hey, we need to zero in on these things because there's some commonality, I think, in a lot of these mistakes that are being made in these games we've gotten to watch so far.
No doubt. I mean, and you try to prepare your team every year for every type of thing that could slip up and bite you. But you just can't. I mean, because things crop up in the course of the game, and so as fun as the UCA Austin Peay game was to watch, there was some wild stuff going on that led you to believe, that they had the issues in camp, or the deep snappers weren't there because they were both quarantined or whatever.
Yeah.
So pre-snap penalties always a big deal. Holding on to the ball, at least Arkansas has seen. Hey, look. If you're holding the ball, if you're not thinking about holding on to the ball, you get hit, you get the ball raked, you can lose it.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that. So I do think that games like last night, for instance, if you've been in your camp and you're an SEC team and you're playing on September 26th, and you haven't really been tackling, and then you see what happens to Navy and what Ken says after the game, you're like, maybe we should have a scrimmage here.
Yeah.
And so I do think the SEC is in a somewhat advantageous position by starting later, and also by letting the students get on camp and having these waves of coronavirus go through as well.
Sure. Let's go back to the scrimmage on Friday. Obviously, the defense seemingly won the day. How much improvement do you think there's been on defense, and how reserved should we be to have any kind of level of hope for a dramatically better defense this season?
Well, pretty reserved, because it's just been so many years that it hasn't been a solid defense. I mean, 2014 was a good defense. Since then, there's been a couple of okay ones, but not a dominant defense by any means. And also, as thin as they still look to be sometimes, if we can be happy that, say, Dorian Jarrell and Julius Coates might be SEC caliber ends, but hey, Mateo Soli, Zach Williams, Eric Gregory, those guys have got to produce too. You got to be deep. So they got pressure on the quarterback, so that means the O-line wasn't doing everything it was supposed to do. They got the picks. I think, and I wrote about the safeties on Sunday, and the coaches think that could be a position of strength, and it would almost be an overnight change for that to happen. But they like what Catalon brings, what Slusher brings. They're mixing guys around, like Jarquez McClellan was just a straight-up cornerback. Now he's playing some nickel. So you could have guys who are outside cover guys become inside. And Barry Odom talked, and this is what was good about this long lead-up to the game, is they were able to install a lot of different packages and coverages and the rotations that go along with them. And if you have that kind of stuff down, you can confuse a quarterback for, a couple, 3 series longer than, say, you normally would. That's on the plus side, man. And they think they can rotate around these guys and have them play different positions and bring pressure from different spots. So there's a chance Arkansas defense could be better this year. And I think they will be better at least a little bit. It could be a substantial margin, but they gave up a ton of points and yards last year, so they needed to be better.
Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, one of the things that Tommy and I were discussing earlier is the kind of gamemanship that Kirby Smart's to be playing now. And we're referring to JT Daniels, the Georgia quarterback who is yet to be cleared after tearing his ACL in Game 1 of the 2019 season when he was still a USC Trojan. Is that pretty inevitable that he's going to get cleared by Arkansas Game 1?
Well, I don't see how he wouldn't be. If he's out there practicing, I mean, it's been 1 year. Usually, you can come back a little sooner than that in modern day ligament reconstruction. So, I don't know if it's gamemanship or what, but I feel fully certain that JT Daniels will be ready to go by the time the Bulldogs roll into here.
One of the other aspects that you kind of look at the Arkansas football team, there's a lot of new pieces and stuff, and an additional coach at this position group, Scott Fountain, heading up the special teams. That was an area that Sam Pittman was adamant, we need a coach here, we need to be really good here, and kind of overlooked in the 2010, 2011, 06 teams with how good the special teams were. Do you think, if you're a betting man, Tom, would you bet that there was going to be a game that Arkansas could possibly pull out by a special teams player too this season?
Well, I would certainly guess that there's a game, that they could impact it in a positive way, say return a punt or return a kickoff. In fact, in my 10 Arkansas frequently asked questions that's running in our tab soon, I asked a question, or I pose it somehow, will Arkansas return a kickoff or punt for a touchdown? And I think the answer is going to be yes. Devion Warren has done it, did it as a freshman 100-yarder against Auburn. And Traylon Burks, as we all know, almost broke one on multiple occasions last year. So I think they're going to do that. Yeah, a well-timed, a blocked field goal here, a blocked punt there, you return for a touchdown. Huge impact on games. And Arkansas has not been a real impact-type team on special teams for several years now. And it looks to me like they're going to have a nice competition at kicker between Reed and Phillips, who both made 52-yarders, and they think the arrival of George Carrington, who had been a Michigan player is really going to push Sam Loy and Reed Bauer, and that they're going to get more production from the punt game, because the last couple of years their net punting and their punting average has just not been very good. And if you can shore up those positions and get yourself 2 or 3, 4 hidden yards per game on those type of things, you never know what it can lead to.
Yeah. Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. This week we'll see the NFL return beginning on Thursday and full slate of games on Sunday. Also, Power 5 football is back as early as Thursday with Miami playing UAB. Then Saturday, kind of a heavy slate, or I guess under the circumstances of ACC and Big 12 teams. A lot of those non-conference games. Some of those are conference matchups. Any game on that schedule? A, have you looked at the schedule? And B, any game that you're excited most to watch this coming weekend?
Well, I have not looked. I mean, I've seen some of them come across. Like, for instance, I know that Missouri State is playing at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how about that? Right. Bobby Petrino and his guys going over there. But isn't Arkansas State or somebody's playing Kansas State?
Arkansas State is at Kansas State. That's Saturday at 2:30. So
yeah. So I mean, last weekend was just kind of a little sampler platter of watching good football. This coming weekend, we're going to see a lot more. And, at heart, all of us who do this, we're college football fans. I was telling my daughters, when it comes down to it, I just love college football.
Yeah.
And, I wanted it to be played this year. So I'm going to be watching Saturday, and I'm going to plug back in. It's not going to feel the same. We've already seen the reduced crowds, how weird it is. But it almost feels like, well, everywhere you go, you see people with masks on and stuff. So it's starting to feel like it's not that strange, these crowds that we see. So I don't know. I am fired up. I'm ready to see some Power 5 football for sure.
Yeah, Clemson takes on Wake Forest. They're number 1 of the country. Number 14, Texas takes on UTEP. Both of those games, 33 and 43-point lines. Texas favored by 43. You mentioned Oklahoma, who's ranked 5th in the country, is playing. And then I think an interesting game, number 10 Notre Dame taking on Duke this weekend. That's, to me, an interesting game.
No doubt. And I'll tell you, I think these first Power 5 games, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on this segment, I think we're going to see some teams that you're going to see them performing. You're like, wow, I didn't think they'd be this sloppy, or, with the pre-snap penalties and just not seeming to be on the same page. And you send your special teams unit out and there's only 10 guys. I think we're going to see a good bit of that this fall, just because it's been such a strange preparation time. And that's where you hope, if you're a Razorback fan, that all this prep that's gone in with Sam Pittman and the staff, that they're sound in all of those areas. There was a lot to shore up, man. Let's be honest, a lot to shore up with Arkansas football, and they may be on the right track, but we can't say they're there yet. So, a lot of areas got to be picking up their production, and protection's got to be better. Quarterback, receiver, communication's got to be better. But if those things start to happen, seeing a competent, well-run team on the field would be really nice.
Tom, appreciate the stuff as always, man. Good insight, and we will talk to you normal time, 7:15 on Thursday, man.
Sounds great, y'all. Have a good one.